any practice, or did you have any teacher?
I never had any teacher, and I was not seeking anything. Yes, I was seeking something, but not that. I didn't have any idea that such a thing existed. So I was in a very good position because I was innocent. I was not seeking. I was seeking something, but not that. So, and what's more, I was not, how do you say that, could you say that? I was not very nervous about anything, you see. I was full of amusement. I was amusing myself to death, trying to understand what I wanted to understand, which had nothing to do with that I business, nothing to do. So, in fact, that the ideal circumstances, the perfect circumstances, the chap does exactly what he should do, without knowing he's doing it. He's doing something useful. And so I was, you could say, meditating, but with my intelligence. And on a small phrase from Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Of course, it's not, the therefore should not be there. It's, I think I am, God exists. That's the real sentence. And I was working on that because I had a few days before, I had an intuition that there was a truth in that sentence, a mysterious truth which concerned me at an incredible degree. I mean, if I could get the answer from that question, not intellectual answer, but the real answer, I would know myself. But I was just trying to break that secret, that fabulous secret. I had no idea that there was a me behind me. I mean, absolutely no idea. And so it went on for hours. I was meditating, and after 1 or 2 hours, I was extremely tired. My mind was extremely tired, but nevertheless, it was so amusing, and so it's such a defeat that I was going on. So at the moment, I said to myself, "Well, I'm stupid to go on because I'm dead tired. My brain won't resist. My mind won't resist."
What were you doing exactly?
Well, I was repeating inside myself, and may I say that I had a very good notion of what was the inside. At that time. I was 16. So I was repeating to myself, I am, therefore I am. I think that, therefore I am. But I was working on that on a very special way, not the usual way. I was not thinking really, trying to get the answer out of a reasoning, thinking. I was just trying to put the real meaning of the words. I think, I am, in the sentence. And of course, my idea was if I succeeded in that curious work, strange work, well, the meaning of the thing would come out. And it would come out to me as a blow, a fantastic blow. So in fact, it was quite realistic, the way. But I've never thought in another way, you see. My way of thinking is always concrete, realistic. I don't go with abstractions. But nevertheless, I think my intelligence was involved in it, really involved in it. So I did that for hours, as I told you. And at the moment, I say to myself, well, it's no use going on. You're crazy to push on that pedal any longer because you're dead. I had the impression that I was crawling on the floor with bloody knees, you see, bleeding knees. I was nearly on the verge of fainting. And suddenly, well, I kept on pushing toward that goal. And suddenly, something very incredible happened. That I was awake. May I tell you that I was 16, and my mind was was not asleep, was awake. My mind was alive and awake, and I felt alive and awake. And suddenly, well, I found myself behind all I knew of my mind, behind, you could say beyond, but it's in the wrong direction, behind, and what was I there? It's the first time in fact, the first time I contacted me, I connected that famous I principle. So I became I, and what was I? It was pure consciousness, aware of itself. And that was an infinite. There was a really concrete infinite, it's not an idea. It was there, it was infinite. And what was I? Well, I was that thing. It was me. In fact, that's an important point that you could say, wait, it's another abstraction or something. But it's not, it was not at all an abstraction. It was me. I means me. It means myself, in French, moi. But you see, it was not unpersonal. On the contrary, it was the fantastic discovery, concrete discovery that I personally was a soul, was a pure spirit, was pure consciousness, but it was me. It was me. So I was born on at that moment. And there's that thing is very queer. That thing I became is very queer because it works in a very, it has a very special way of working because it does itself. You see, it's not a state in which you could lie in a bourgeois way. It's not a big armchair where you lie there. No, it's fundamentally active. So that thing does that thing, that infinite of consciousness or awareness is active, and it makes itself. It does itself. Well, it does not. When you say it makes itself, or there's a temptation to refer to an action in time. Of course, it's not an action in time, but I suppose it's what they call in philosophy a pure act. But it's an act, and who had the idea of the act and the intention of the act? Well, it was the act itself. So the thing, well, it's a verb. You see, it's not a state. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a verb, and the verb was.
Generates itself?
Well, generated itself. And the thing has been going on for 50 years now. First, it's always the first time. That's why it's difficult to describe the thing, because it's true that it's been going on for 50 years, but in fact, when I do it, when the I principle does it, but the I principle is me. You don't have to split the thing in I and me. The illusion is not me, it's what I think about me. I mean, so that I, me, generates itself, and it's been going on for 50 years, but it's always the first time. So it's a paradox for the logic, because it's let's say, a million time, or a billion time, but it's always the first time. The first, no change. No change. Very strange.
No, because the idea, the time itself is an idea, is something that we have created. So this is not in this time. This is not.
No, the way we live time is very bad, false. We think there's the notion of cause and effect in our conception of time. So that's an hallucination. Time is not that. I don't say that time doesn't exist, but it's not what we think. Space exists also, but it's absolutely not what we think. Our representation of space is entirely false and an illusion. But what's very nice, it's beyond, you can use that word, beyond that false conception of space and that false conception of time, there's a real space, a real word, and a real time, and that's, you have a name in English for that, it's Eden. C'est ça. But at the first time, I mean, it didn't change anything about perception, no major changes occurred in my perception of the world. I mean, in fact, the world was not there, you see. The world was not invented from that point of view, very special point of view. So there was just that pure and sheer consciousness, aware of itself, and that was me, that was I, and that there was an infinite value. An infinite value. I can't say God because God is over there, and this is exactly in the other direction. So it's impossible to have some devotion for that thing. It's impossible to have some reverence for that thing because if you have some devotion for something, it's an object, not the pure subject, not in the other direction. So, in fact, I can spit on that thing. It doesn't harm it. It won't ever. But it will go. The thing itself will approve because my intention is good. My intention is to put the thing at the right place, not over there, but here now, at the center of myself, beyond the center, the normal center of myself. So, what should be said is that there's an infinite value. I cannot call it bliss or felicity. It's not exactly the right word. It's not ecstasy. It's much more than ecstasy. So it's very mysterious because the infinite value is there. If you dared to compare that with other values, well, all the other values, love included, would seem nothing, but of course you don't do that, you don't compare. Compare means thinking, relating things and thinking. You don't have to compare. Well, that's what you call an intrusion, and an intrusion has barefoot feet. So, in fact, that value is very mysterious. But of course, you don't discuss the fact of that value, of that evidence. It's there, and it's you. And you know immediately that you know everything. See, not intellectually, because all knowledges have been destroyed. I don't know a goddamn thing. Even at 7 years, when I was 7 years old, I knew lots of things. Now I don't know a goddamn thing. I'm too young for that, you see. That thing is very young, you see. It's just being born. It's borning, just being born. It doesn't know. It's so young that nobody has tried to put into it some knowledge. It's too young. So I don't know a goddamn thing. I don't even know that, you see. So what was the other question?
You want to go to the next question?
Yeah.
Well, I had this question, I think you answered it. In the awakening, who awakens?
Yes, but that's the main question, of course, because I have met lots of people. I don't regret it, but I don't approve it. I think that playing golf or walking with a dog along a road is not much better, but just the same quality. I mean, it has no importance. Anyway, everything points to that thing, you see. When I'm speaking of that thing, well, in a way, in me it points to that thing. But when I'm combing my hair, or what I have the rest of my hair, well, I'm doing something which which points to that thing in the same thing. anything we feel, each time we feel something, we think something, we make a discovery. Every time we live something, well, it points immediately in that direction, which is absolutely unknown by most of people, which is very queer because it's them. A point on which you could insist that let's take a man or a woman, a human being, which has really a mind and use it. Because if you don't use your mind, the mind is going to pourrir, ça se dit to rot? Rot. It's going to rot. So you absolutely, there's an old préjugé, you should not think, you should not, mind is awful. But the less you use your mind, the less you use your mind consciously and with will, the poorest it will become. You see, it will be in a very frightful state. So I think but the same thing is true within the same thing which is true for intelligence and the mind is true for sensibility. If you never feel anything, you'll get nowhere. If you don't use your intelligence, which is a gift, a fantastic gift, well, you'll never get anywhere. So after that, well, I mean, it means that the dream, it's a dream, that no ordinary inner life, which goes in time, well, is a dream. But to be able to awake from that dream, the dream should have some consistency. It should. So you must use it. Because you can, if the dream is not there, you can have no chance of awaking from that dream.
So what is this? What is intelligence, and what does it mean to do?
Well, it's very subtle, because intelligence is, in my opinion, you see, we mix everything. We mix intelligence, that fantastic gift, where to understand something is a shock. It's that shock, each time we understand really something, not superficially, we understand something, even on the pure intellectual level, where it's a shock, it's a commotion. And that commotion reminds me of the ultimate commotion I lived, and I'm still living, of that pure consciousness. So what is the hallucination? Because of course there's an hallucination, and the whole, comment dire, champ de conscience en anglais?
Field of consciousness.
The whole field of conscience is poisoned and is destroyed, and it's destroyed not by intelligence, but by deterioration of that fundamental function. See, so it's not when we think that we make the error. Well, we could say it's a dream, and you must wake up from that. But it's a very light dream, and it's there en fait, it's my, comment on dit un berceau en anglais?
Cradle.
Where I will be born. You see, it's but it's the way we use our intelligence which is in cause, and which makes the hallucination. And it's very, very difficult in a few seconds, in a few minutes, to be very complete about the nature of the hallucination, and how intelligence is rots. Or you say rot? Yes, rots. Well, it's difficult. But let's say when you awake, in the sense I put into the word, when you awake, you discover something incredible, that all you called before the realities, the truth, and it's very impressive, very impressive. We are circled by the truths and realities. Inside ourselves, we are circled also. And all that immense field is an hallucination. So there's some, of course, truth, it's an ambivalent word. I mean, it contains the best and the worst. But let's say it roughly, the facts, a very important thing for normal human being, normal human mind, very important, very impressive facts. I'm going to die. There are an incredible number of people on Earth, and they're going to die too, and they will suffer before. And they live on some kind of a sphere. You say sphere, a sphere, which is called Earth. The quantity, well, these are facts, and I'm in a bad situation. Financially, I'm in a very bad situation, and affectively, I'm in a very bad situation. Everything goes wrong. Fact. This is a fact. And what do we do when we deal with the fact? We don't do that. Nothing, just a little fly, puff! We don't crush it at a little fly. We're impressed. Like we're impressed, like we would be with our father. He was very authoritarian. He had a big authority on me. So we realize that. We're on the defensive. But in fact, the difference when you wake up, all that disappears. You're not impressed anymore by truth or facts. You look at a fact, for whatever it is. I'm looking for God. I'm looking for the ultimate reality. Well, it's a fact. Well, I look at the fact and I see what it is really. Nothing. A thought. An image, perhaps. Mental image. A fact. A thought. Nothing. And there, of course, I had. Before that, I didn't knew it. But I was 16, so I'm in very good shape. Not too many knowledges, and very happy young man. But what I did not know that I had an enormous suitcase, which was breaking my shoulder. I think it was breaking my soul. And in that suitcase, what was there? What could I find in that suitcase? Knowledges, an incredible quantity of knowledges, facts, truth. And suddenly, poof, I put that enormous luggage on the ground. For it's not possible because that luggage was me. I thought it was me. So you can. So let's say we are on a kid gare. How is it?
On the quay, in the station, train station.
For example,
platform.
A platform. A platform of a railroad station. Well, you can. It's difficult to put yourself. The whole meaning of there's in the world myself. Put it on the platform, and go on, whistling happily. Very difficult. But in fact, what we should do, it's very possible, because we are not the suitcase and what it contains. We have nothing to do with it. It's a nice thing. You don't have to spit on it or despise it. But in the normal state of consciousness, well, the suitcase and what it contains pretends to be you. So the earth is a sphere. I'm born at that in 1931. Yes, and I had a mother. Her name was, her Christian name was Audrey. My father was called Francis. And after that, I lived this and that, lived and that for 50 years. I woke up when I was 16. It never faded away. First, it cannot fade away. It's not a state, it's I. Well, the incredible quantities of facts, you see. And when you deal with facts, as I said, you're very impressed. It's very difficult not to be impressed. The authority is enormous. Remember when you were very young and your father told you something. Well, Alain is a very nice chap, an adorable chap, so he was not nasty with you. But let's say your father was a kind of a brute, very authoritarian. Well, a child cannot resist to the parental authority. It's impossible. Well, fact works like that. but it's an usurpation. They have no authority. You know what is a fact? Even the existence of the universe. There is such a thing as the universe, and it's very big. Even you could speak about cosmos. That's even bigger. Impressive, impressive. A thought, nothing more. Absolutely.
And with this, like this suitcase that you talked about, do you think someone can just decide to put it down, like when you put it down, let's say? Can you just decide to put it down, or does it happen by itself, or does the person need to do some kind of preparation?
Well, it's but for me it happened out of sheer accident. Well, I considered for a very long time as a pure accident. I don't know why that thing that I woke up. I have no idea about it. It has absolutely, and in fact, you see, I was working mentally. The circumstances can be described as very precise. And so, but you could think that what I was doing, that research in my mind, which was full of passion and of amusement, not heavy, something very light. Even if it nearly killed me, it was very light. Well, you could think that it's the cause, and the thing which raised is the effect. It's not that. It just raised because it raised, because it raised. It merged because it merged. No. So if you have the intention to get there, which is here, which is difficult to, with the implication on the level of action is quite awful. I want to go there, but I want to. There is here. You're going to have trouble getting to that point. So what was I saying? I forgot. Quelle était la question?
La question c'était quand on pose la valise.
Yes, but yeah, the problem is, let's say you have the intention to go there, of putting the suitcase on the platform of the railway station, and it's you. Of course, the suitcase is you. So if you leave it there, you cannot go on the platform whistling happily, and freely, for the first time of your life, free, gay, with light, very light, and in a very happy mood, you could say. It's an understatement. Well, in fact, you can do it. Everybody can. But if you have the intention that if you're crawling in that direction, making horrible efforts, fighting, well, you can fight for a whole life. I mean, but one of the reasons you can fight for a whole life without succeeding is because you have the intention, and the intention is in the luggage. You see, it's the thing you should put down on the platform. The intention seems real. I have the intention of becoming God, or the pure consciousness. I want the ultimate realization. Well, I have nothing against it, but I must immediately point out to that truth that it's part of the hallucination. As in fact, it is the suitcase you should put down. You should leave on the ground. And there's another way of putting it. You see, I don't say that we have nothing to do with the suitcase and what it contains. A suitcase could be called the identity, the principle of identity. Well, perfect too. There's no harm in, comment dire, épancher. Difficile. There's no harm in saying or living that, let's say I'm the luggage, you see? Let's say I'm Stephen Jourdain, I have that this father, this mother had, and this life had this life. No harm in doing that. So I don't need to. My identity card, in a way, should be destroyed. In another way, it's very pure. It's pure as long as it doesn't pretend to be real. If it's a play, it's perfect, and it's my right to. It's my duty even to play in that way. But so in the suitcase, what are the words we could find? We found knowledges, truths, facts, an incredible quantity of facts. In fact, when we look at the tree, we think, or look at some grass, we think we're looking at the tree or some grass. No, it's not true at all. We are looking at what we know about the grass and tree. So we think we're looking outside. In fact, we're looking inside our own mind. It's a. Alors, what in the suitcase? What word we could find? It's all our determinations. Well, there's no harm in the fact of having some determination, but it depends on the relation, the way you relate yourself with the determination. You see, it's a determination for the other word attributes. Well, for a subject, there's no harm to have an attribute. It's perfect, but of course he is not the attribute. He's not reducible to the attribute. So I'm not reducible to my determinations. I'm always more than my own determinations. So the way to describe the hallucination is to refer to the feeling we have that we are absolutely involved, entirely involved in our determination, and that we don't exist. We don't have a foot outside, so we don't exist outside. We are circled by our determination, and only inside our determination. But this is absolutely false. False. We're always more than what we think that what we are. So I don't say there's no harm in being the son of that chap and the son of that woman, and even having a nice childhood and a horrible childhood. No harm in that. I mean, this is nothing. But I am not. Well, let's say I can be that. There's no harm being that, but I'm not reducible to that. So I'm more than that. Well, you can put it in a very abstract. If you try to put that in a very short way, you can take the letter A, where obviously A equals A. There's no more in A than A. A is circled by its AIT. It's its own principle. Well, it's not true. A is always more than A, bigger than A. Different and bigger than A. So that's the proposition of life, see. And it's true of my, what you may call the ultimate self, and always more than itself. And when the I-thought ray merges, when the I-thought merges, what is the I-thought? Fundamentally, it's an object, the first of all the objects. And it's an attribute, and it's a determination, which pretends that I'm not more than that. The I thought pretends that I is not more than that. So I'm more than that. I'm not reducible to that. And so I kill the I thought. Once that major event has occurred, of course it's a non-event because nothing changes. See, lots of people think that everything will change. They'll be obliged to change. I mean, I had this belief or this belief before. Well, I'm obliged to change. I was communist, so I cannot I'll be obliged to change. But that thing doesn't generate any change. It's the biggest change of the world, of the universe, but it doesn't generate any change necessarily. So that thing which is a very strange thing, I was telling you that thing was worked in a very strange fashion, way, very strange, and that our logic, usual logic, could not grasp that thing. It's, without saying stupid things about it. So that thing, that I principle is always more than what it is. So pure consciousness is not reducible. Even pure consciousness is not reducible to pure consciousness. Very strange, very strange. So the chap who wakes up, he woke up in the morning, he's perfectly alert, and he feels alive, and he's absolutely convinced that he's fully conscient of everything, aware of everything, and of himself. En fait, he's in a dream. He's in a dream. When he wakes up in the middle of his own wake, which is a strange thing. Immediately that knowledge, but it's not an intellectual knowledge. It's so it's the same word, but with in an entirely different dimension. The signification is entirely different. Well, the knowledge is there, the direct, immediate knowledge is there that I'm not reducible to anything. But at that time, of course, I'm not. When that thing occurs, you don't. What is the thing I'm not reducible to? Well, people think that's their body. People think that's their feelings, negative emotions. Well, when you wake up, all that doesn't exist. It's much more simple. I'm not the thought which is merging from the I principle. Puff! I'm not that. And that you could say roughly that what is that thought? That first, that thought which is something like the mother of all the thoughts. What does it contain? What's the content? Well, it's the thought of the I thought. And of course, it looks exactly as, it's very ressemblant. Hein? It looks exactly as I. If you, on the concept level, there's no difference. It's a perfect picture. Hein? But the fact that the picture, where is the picture? It's there, and I'm here. So it's an usurpation. So I should that awful I thought. But I have no other problems, you see. My body, I don't care. It's not the problem. It's not the problem. The problem is to not to crash in the I thought and lose yourself.
So would you say that you use vigilance for that?
Yes, the only way to that I thought is very dangerous, very vicious. It's very dangerous because, well, perhaps when it merges in an infinite fraction of second, I'm talking about the inner and spiritual time, not the time of my watch. It's innocent, but immediately it's going to corrupt, to rot, and after that the I thought becomes a horrible danger. I mean, it's queer because of course that thing occurs. It has an echo. You say echo in English. It has an echo in the human intelligence, and you say, well, where is the danger? The danger that the echo, if it's not approached with awareness, well, in the darkness of a non-awareness, it will become you. So you'll say me, or to say I all your life, being absolutely convinced that you're dealing with the real I. In fact, you're dealing with the usurpator, you're dealing with the I thought. And so you've been reduced to the I thought. And the I thought is not just the word thought doesn't give the doesn't give the real nature of the I thought. The I thought is in the I thought you find all the belief we can have, and all the philosophies are there, all the dogma. How do you say dogma in English? Dogma. All the dogmas are there. So all the affirmation are there. So when you kill it, you kill all affirmations, all philosophies. And what I'm doing there, of course, what am I doing now? I'm putting out another philosophy, but that should be immediately destroyed.
So you catch it or you destroy it as soon as it comes about?
Yes, yes. So when does it come? When, let's say in time, in terms of time, where, how can we relate that thing to time? Well, it's now. It's very simple. It's not yesterday, not yesterday, not tomorrow. It's not in a few seconds. It's now, right now. And inside our mind, see, because there's an earthly present, the present. You can find the present on earth, but that's another thing. And there's lots of confusion about that. People try to find the present on earth. Well, there's no harm in looking in that way and searching in that way, but there's a present which is purely spiritual. And that's so, there's a now which is purely spiritual. And that thing, let's say that thing is now, but in fact, it's a name of the thing. To speak, to say pure consciousness, to say I, to say being, or to say now, saying the same thing. And it doesn't exist in a general way. It exists in myself now, and you cannot find it in another place. But what, you see, you must insist on a point that, we saw that in that suitcase there was all our determinations. By God, there are many determinations and an ocean of determinations. And we are reduced to that. All the knowledge. So you must forget not what you lived before, not with your memory, what your memory shows to you, but you should forget what you know intellectually. All your, we are grounded in some belief. You say belief? Yeah. Always grounded. That ground seems very innocent and pure. It's the demon. You should destroy it. No ground. But what I'm saying is, and you see, it's not very difficult to see that there's another ground which is appearing. Is what I say, to destroy all the ground. Even that ground should be destroyed. And in that suitcase, first you say, to put the suitcase down, it's not easy because there's my father and my mother, there's my daughter, there's all I know, all the things I know. We know lots of things. It has no importance whether that knowledge is real or false, is true or false, has no importance. You see, even I prefer to destroy the truth when it's true, when it's absolutely true. So what I say is absolutely true. At least I'm aiming at that. Well, the more it's true, the more it must be killed. So, all intellectual belief, all intellectual truth should be killed. But of course, this is already the start of another belief, and it should be killed immediately. So.
But to be able to kill them, you have to first see them.
Yes, you've got to see them, and it's very difficult.
Because you're totally
Yes, because we are very good in thinking, and I have nothing against thinking, but it's not the way to be, you see. if you're aiming at being, just being, well, thinking is not the role you should take. It's a way to know thinking. There's another way to know, just one. It's consciousness. Be aware. So, in fact, you should put on the side definitely that belief that you get somewhere in thinking. You'll get somewhere, and you'll connect your own reality only by awareness.
So you can keep going back all the time, because every time you become aware of becoming aware, that's a thought. So you could just keep doing that all the time.
Yeah, and so at the moment, well, that's a very good objection. You could say it's a classical objection if there was more than 2 or 3 people in the world. So who does it puts out this objection. But it could be a classical objection. That objection, there's something charming there, absolutely charming. That at the moment, the chap realizes he does his work well, aware of that thought. Immediately, that awareness puts out another thought. I'm aware of that new thought. Perhaps I'm not, my speed is perhaps not sufficient to grasp immediately the thing. But perhaps I'm a little late. But nevertheless, there's an evidence which merges, which is that whatever, there's a vicious thing. It's a vicious processus, like a vis sans fin. I don't know the English term for vis sans fin.
Vis sans fin is like a screw.
A screw without end, you see. So, in fact, at the moment, the chap would say, it's like a screw without end. It will go on everything. Each time I have a victory, it means that I've lost the war. So, but that's something charming there, because that's the main objection. The main objection. That vis sans fin, it's a main objection. But what is it? Look at it. Well, it's just a thought. And at that time, I'm out of the vicious spiral. So. The main error, you see, is not to have a mind and in a normal inner life, and ask yourself lots of questions and speak to yourself in your mind. No, that's absolutely charming. It's a play. You're reading, you don't know it, but you're reading a charming novel, very, very amusing. But that's quite charming. But it's we don't take it as a fiction. We take it for real, and at that time it corrupts. And it's starting to bite us, destroy us. And I'll say one more thing. After that, I'll quit. There's something very strange. The fact that I'm talking about what? I'm talking about pure existence. Well, pure existence in a way doesn't exist. You see, it's very light. When you think about it, it takes false reality. In fact, it's the only thing. It's pure existence is the only thing in the world which doesn't exist. So it's very light. You could say that it's a burden. Yeah, I woke up and that yes, I'm God, and it's just for the weight of God is something. It's going to crush me and destroy me. Well, no, because it doesn't exist. You see, in the meaning we put in the word exist, normally it doesn't exist. The pure awakening as an object, which means as a thought, simply doesn't exist. So it's incredibly light.
yesterday you were talking about this, the process of thought, and maybe of mental images also.
How?
Mental
Yes.
images, and how they create a so-called reality.
Yes, you see, the very queer thing, because we have an intuition. We're not dead. Our intuitions are not all dead. Some are still alive, and we know very well that when we form a mental image, even when we produce a thought, in the limits of our mind, so-called limits of our mind, because in fact it's infinite, the mind. Well, we have the intuition that more or less that it's not very absolutely real, you see. We know very well that the mental image of that tree of my mother is not the tree of my mother. And when we get crazy, really crazy, and we should be en train de nous passer à camisole de force, when we go to the hospital, it's a psychiatric hospital, when we forget that. So when the chap walking the street speaking to an unexistent person and shouting and do that, well, obviously he forgot that that intuition we were speaking about has disappeared. So it's a mental image, and he doesn't recognize it, the mental image, as a mental image. So it thinks it's real, and we feel, in fact, we feel uneasy when we see that, and I think we have the intuition that the chap is violating a fundamental law of the mind, of the spirit, of being. He's teaching. C'est un traître, comment on dit c'est traître? Traitor. C'est ça. On a spiritual level, so we are very uneasy. We smile, but we are very uneasy looking at the chap. Well, after that, we look in ourselves, and I'm not like that chap. But of course, I'm like that chap, because I have some conscious mental images, or conscious thoughts. Well, if I'm conscious away dans la mesure, well, let's say, I'm more or less conscious of these thoughts, these mental images. So, if I'm more or less, but let's say roughly that they don't appear to me as realities, really. But that's the conscious part of our mind that happens in the conscious part. So there, let's say we are gentlemen, and we act as gentlemen inside ourselves. But what we don't know is that the mind in which happens all these, in which raise these mental images, these thoughts of which we are more or less conscient, of which we are more or less aware, well, the mind itself is a mental image. The mind itself is a thought. So, but that mental image, we have no notion, we are absolutely unconscious of it. And my mind as a thought, we are absolutely, as an image or a mental image or as a thought, I'm unconscious of that. So how do I treat the thing? As reality. You see, when I think I'm doing this or this in my mind, well, see, if somebody told me that that was just a play, just a fiction, I wouldn't agree. Yeah? I'm in big sorrow. I'm working very. I'm working on a problem, and I have the biggest difficulties with the problem. So I'm suffering inside. So the chap comes and says, well, "This is unreal." Yes. I won't say the rest of the sentence. So, but you've got the general idea what I mean. So all that is of the same nature as the mental image of the tree, which is more or less recognized as unreal. So let's say in that room there you find a few pictures. So you see, you look at that room looks like could be compared to our mind. There are windows. What the windows means what in our mind? The eyes. So it works out. There's no door, of course, no door in our mind. But a room, windows, which are our eyes, which pretend to be our eyes, and we take it for granted that all the things which happens in our mind, whether they are positive or negative, usually they are negative, very negative. We suffer more than we are happy here. Well, we take it for granted anyway that everything is real. This little mental image not very real. We recognize that. But me looking at the mental image, that's a fact. That's the truth. That's real. And the mind itself and the time, there's time, the inner time. That inner time obviously is real. I cannot do anything against it. It's not the inside, it comes from outside. If I say to somebody who feels that inner time, who is cut into little pieces by that inner time, all these little seconds, I'm borning and then I'm dying. I'm borning and I'm dying. Well, if you say to some chap who has that feeling that he's dreaming, you will get a blow in the face. If the chap is honest and strong, he will knock you out. But in fact, all this is a dream. So more or less, let's say, put it with that word, more or less we recognize that our mental images, even some thoughts, some thoughts when they are not too much affirmative, some thoughts are rather light, and okay, it's more or less unreal. Okay. But what we don't know is the whole goddamn thing is unreal. So after that, that's awful. My mind. So we put out a conclusion, a deduction and a conclusion. Well, I don't have the right to think or to imagine or to pay attention because it's a dream. It's very bad. No, that's a deduction. That's part of the let's say part of the dream, of course, but the deteriorated dream. So you cannot deduce anything about what I'm trying to say. See, it's not. You cannot use it on a logical level. Even if you use logic very purely, even if you think very purely, it cannot be used on the level of logic or thought. Each time you're going to deduce something, it will be the hallucination will come out again.
But that's important because when we read, for example, an article, when people will read what you're saying, they will be coming up as they read. They will be coming up with their own conclusions about it, and they'll say, "Oh yes, this I agree," or "Oh yes, this is true," or "Yes," but in fact, it's being part of that same.
It will be part of the hallucination. You see. In fact, let's suppose that a mind, the inner man or woman, an inner human being, is in very good shape, and has all the tools which are needed to go backward to ourselves, behind all we think we are. Well, what is the ultimate, comment on dit obstacle en anglais?
Obstacle?
The ultimate obstacle. Yes. It's his belief in the reality of his research. See, I wrote that about Alain. I wrote a letter to Alain saying exactly that. And what I I had the culot of publishing the letter. So, but it's true. The research itself is absolutely unreal. And if we go a long way in the right direction, at the moment, there won't be any more hallucination. The hallucination will be entirely concentrated in that belief that our research is real. Well, thought of the research, paf, nothing. And there you awake. So the research is finished. In fact, it's the belief that all the things which occur in our mind, I included, the I which is thinking, imaginer, qui imagine, well, that belief that the belief of the reality, concerning the reality of all these events and things which occur in the mind, well, this is the hallucination. So you don't have to despise all these events, all these things. You've just got to realize that it's unreal. The other thing, it's very difficult to. He will spit into your face if you give him that advice. Yet that he should let drop that research, but not on an intellectual level. Concretely, in some sense, poof, put the luggage down. In fact, at the moment, the luggage we were speaking about, what it contains is only the research itself. And so, in fact, the thing has been simplified. So, but you must absolutely put it down. Comment on dit renoncer en anglais? Renounce. Well, in a way, it's a word, renounce, which has a Christian resonance. So I don't take it that way. But I must use it. At a time, you must renounce. You see, the thing is real. I'm searching. I believe in myself searching, because of course it's a good search, and no other search really on earth. Even in heaven, no other search. I must renounce. Let it drop. It's nothing. It's just a thought. You're dealing with yourself. You don't know it, but you're dealing with yourself. You disguise. It's a thought which is disguised. Just part of yourself is disguised as something else, in an object. But you must. It's an usurpation, an imposture. So you must let it drop. It seems very difficult and very, very simple.
So, when we hear this, when we see that it's true, but then there's in your life every day, there seems to be often two directions, which is like you follow the reason, you know what you should do because you know, but then you have also the intuition, which is like the more natural direction, and where things happen, you don't have to.
Yeah, there are two ways to know. One way is thinking, and use reasoning. You say that in English, yes. Reasoning. Well, and the other way is to be aware, and we don't know that. In fact, we ignore that second way of knowing. We think we can only know by thinking, by that long mediation of a reflection, of our intellectual research. But it's absolutely true. At any time, we can use the other tool and the other way of knowing, and know directly by consciousness. And some people would agree on that. They would agree, but they would object that nevertheless all the intelligence there is in the universe is in the thinking. Well, it's not true. Consciousness is infinitely intelligent. So you don't renounce in that direction. I mean, you don't have to. When you start to know with conscious attention in yourself, with consciousness, you don't become stupid. You see, you don't lose anything. All the intelligence of the world is there. It's an eureka, you see? That thing I'm talking about is an eureka. But it's an eureka, it's a light of intelligence making an extraordinary intrusion in the level of existence. Normally, thinking deals with thinking, with abstractions, it flies its own sky. And there, what we don't know is that intelligence can be used can appear and be effective on another level, a level of a pure existence. So there's the way of knowing. If you want to, to know how to build a house or how to make an addition, you've got thinking is very good. In the small life of every day, you go to the market with very good. But if you want to become yourself, that tool must be abandoned. It's of no use. You'll never get. You'll never get to yourself. You'll never be in possession of yourself if you use that tool. You must only. It's unuseful. You must use the right tool, which is consciousness, which could be described as intuitive knowledge, opposed to reasoning knowledge.
But then the use of this consciousness, of this kind of knowledge, implies that you put aside everything.
Yes, but even that, you see, even what you are saying, we put aside. Yeah. So the implication is I must put aside everything. For example, I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have some children, I even have some friends, very strange. I have a few friends, and I like Earth, I like the trees, I like the sky and the clouds in the sky. I like that. So yes, but of course that's an intellectual interpretation of what says the intuition. So I must kill what must be killed. That must not make any mistake while doing this. But you don't have. You see, once there's the intuition, I must renounce. So I must not be implicated on that crazy game. In the crazy game, you find everything. It's the whole universe, our whole field of consciousness. Well, that's an intuition, and you must ground yourself on that intuition. But the devil is there. In fact, he speaks, and he wants. So we don't really ground ourselves on the intuition. We present that intuitive knowledge to the reason, and with humility, and we are quite afraid of the answer, but we show it like if I find a diamond, I'm not sure it's real, but of course I should be sure it's real because it comes from my mother. My mother didn't buy any false diamonds, you see, and she was too good a woman to have some cheap thing on her. So just for my mother, I should take it for. I should accept the fact it's a diamond, but no. I have doubts. So the diamond is the I principle. That's the diamond. But I'm not sure. You see, I hesitate. Well, is it really a real diamond? I'm afraid. Maybe it's a false one. So I go to a shop and show it to a specialist. How do you call a bijoutier? Jewelry. Yeah, yes. And every time the chap he wants the diamond, it's false. I'll buy it for you for 10 francs. But So it's an enormous mistake, you see. You don't have to ask, you don't have to look for a confirmation of the intuitive knowledge. That's an enormous mistake, but we all make that mistake. And we demand, we ask the reason to a confirmation of the value of the infinite value. Well, you see, I've just made the infinite value. Oh, reason, please tell me whether it's true or not. That's an enormous mistake. And what's more, it's not only a mistake, comment on dit lâcheté en anglais? Where you act cowardly. Oui, yes. You're coward. You're a coward at that time, you see? You're a traitor. When you have an intuition, well, you must ground absolutely on it. And if the reasons will bark something, whoa, whoa, in your direction. No, it's a subjective looping and something. It'll never agree. It's like an intruder in the house. The intruder. Chap looks nice, but he's poor. I accept it in my house, and after that, slowly but firmly, he's trying to regent everything. He becomes the boss. After that, he's sleeping with my wife. So, after a month, I mean, I know he's a dangerous man, very dangerous. He looks very nice, but he never agrees with what I say, what I feel. He says, no, this is shit. This is very poor. This is illusion. This is illusion. I've met God. No. This is illusion. I am God. See? And after that, he really sleeps with my wife. So I get angry. So I should get angry. I take a gun, I shoot him. And that's what I did, and what still I am doing. You cannot accept that intruder. And that intruder is the reason functioning without your permission. You see? And that's very dangerous. The reason will always, even if we're awake, you're right in the heart of God. And it's very concrete, not an abstraction. It's just there. You're in the heart of God, of the infinite value. The reason will bark something. No, this is an illusion. Don't fall in the trap, chap. So, very impressive. But I should know, not impressive. I'm not impressed. I'd kill the thing. See, I think I'm one of the only men on earth who are not impressed by truth, by facts. And even the fact I woke up at 16 doesn't impress me at all. As a fact, it's nothing. Just my mental fingers moving without, and I think it's like a puppet. And I think the puppet is real. It's just a puppet. So very charming, horrible in a way. It will shock lots of people. But I'm searching the ultimate reality of myself. Or even worse, I'm searching the self. Well, what is that? Just a mental puppet, and I don't recognize it. I think it's real. But if I pay attention, real attention to it, I will sooner or later discover that it's just my own finger moving. So you see, I do that. Or maybe I think, a horrible beast! I'm afraid. It's going to bite me. It's not me. It's out of. But of course, oh merde! It disappeared. It was just my fingers moving. It was a fiction. And all our fears come from that, you see. I'd have nothing against fear, because I think it's very human, and compassion. I feel compassion for somebody who fears. But the fear of death is not a little fear. But of course, just what is death? Well, I take it for granted that it exists. That when I'm afraid of death, I'm absolutely sure that my mind is looking at this itself, at the real thing, and I never go verify whether it's a real thing or an unreal thing. Well, I never go verify that, but I should go verify. And if I go verify, I'll discover something absolutely new, incredible. That death. What is death? What am I looking at now, which is frightening me? It's just my mental figure. How do you call that? Moving. Mental figures moving. That just all. Which mean a thought, more or less dressed with a mental image. Nothing. Nothing.
And when you see that, sometimes when you see it clearly, that is just, it can be quite funny.
It's
So
very
you
funny.
realize that,
It's, in fact, it's a gag.
yes.
It's a gag. So, but what you find when you discover when the gag appears, I mean the bliss or the value is you meet is so big and deep that you don't have the idea it's a gag. But in fact, it's a gag, incredible gag. We are mystifying ourselves from the birth to the death. 60, that it never ends, and we have doubts. But when we have doubts, I have that thing, so I have doubts. But what? Even a little doubt, little bit of doubt. But what does that mean? It means that I don't consider that the intuitive knowledge is a good ground. And I have the idea, which is very dangerous, that the only ground is what could come out of the reason. So I'm always hearing the reason and not the intuition. Very dangerous. And while meditating, but it seems that lots of people meditate. I don't know what they do, what they mean by that. But let's say they meditate in the right way, trying to go backward their own mind and to the source, which is not a gesture which is very easy. Well, the only reason for it should succeed immediately. See, the problem is very easy. It should the research should succeed immediately. So you meditate, paf, here you are. You're born. You have it, or you are it. But it doesn't work like that. And because the chap who is meditating in the right way, trying to grasp in a concrete way, it's himself, his inner self. Well, he's full of doubts. He grounds on the saying of the reason more than he grounds on the saying of the intuition, and so that's the explanation of the failure.
Because the reason makes you sit down, meditate, have an intention in the whole process, whereas intuition is like just be yourself and.
Yes, but the intuition, the intuition culminates with pure consciousness. You see, I think it's the model of all intuitive knowledge. So it's immediate, direct. It puts out on an existential level in a fantastic evidence. So when you deal with an evidence, you don't. The evidence, you don't need more. The evidence is there. You don't have to look for a confirmation. You see, but it's crazy in a way because it's like a chap. Now people are getting crazier and crazier. and I feel I find among very young people, very young chaps or young girls, a form of craziness I have never met before. Some people, some young chaps, they come to me and the first thing they ask me is not about pure consciousness. Am I in love or not? Shit. You should know. I mean, normally, in the old days, I mean, you knew whether you were in love or not. But now, I'm in love. Am I really in love? So I get, yeah, of course I'm a little astonished by that question. But what does that mean? It means, first there is an intuition which works very well, used to work very well in every mind, in every heart, that I'm in love, I know it, whether both it is there. I don't have to ask my father or guru whether I'm in love or not. But not nowadays. Now they come to me or to another. Well, I'm not a guru, but they go and see other gurus, lots of gurus generally. And they ask, am I in love? Shit, it's impossible. That the human stupidity can be as wide, enormous. The possibility of stupidity in a human mind is enormous. I never thought we could get to that point. Stupidity could go so far. It seems incredible, but it means that he doesn't never, even for simple thing on earth, he doesn't ground himself on intuition. The intuitive knowledge is there, and it is despised. And he asks the reason for him to confirm or infirm the thing. This is crazy. An evidence should not be discussed. You see, when a chap says something, even when I think something, I put out a few sentences. Well, that can be discussed. Discursive thinking can be discussed. But when an evidence is there, it should not be discussed.
It doesn't need to because it's evident. It doesn't need
No,
to
because it means that if you discuss this evidence, you don't believe you don't believe in it. You believe in the reason. And it means you're out of order, you don't work. If you were a television, you wouldn't have any image. We could say also, you see, the word phenomenon is phenomenon in English. Well, we are convinced that inside ourselves, we know that on Earth there are some phenomena. I'm not talking about Earth. I'm not very interested, in fact, in Earth. It's secondarily I could be interested, but the main thing is the spirit. It's what happens at the root of the mind. Well, we're absolutely convinced that in our mind, things exist. There are such a thing as things and events. On the events, pour les événements, c'est ça, events. And they seem real, absolutely real, like on Earth. You see, when I have a thought, when a thought comes to me which is unpleasant, it bites me exactly as a dog on Earth could bite me. So it's a thing, and I'm convinced it's a real thing, and that when I wake up in the morning, but I wake up in the middle of the day, which is better, I could be convinced that it's real, it's a fact. Well, there are no facts in the mind, no things, no events, just thoughts of things, thoughts of events, nothing more. Everybody, every mind have the belief that himself or itself, I don't know what should I say, itself living this or that, thinking this or that, and while the mental context is of that quality, of that another quality, this is real. This is a dream, a novel, a movie, charming as a movie or as a novel, horrible as a reality. So you could say, I don't believe in myself. You see, I don't believe in truth, but the truth that I exist, I don't believe in it. And I don't believe, I have absolutely no respect for the intellectual, it's another intellectual truth. No respect for any kind of philosophy, even if it has some genie in it. I'm not impressed. I know it's just trash.
You think about yourself, but you don't take it seriously?
Well, I love myself, but I don't take it as a real thing which could be opposed to what I'm really, like another reality. I destroy myself. But when we appear to ourselves as a reality which is opposing what we are really, facing it and opposing it, well, we are believing in the truth of the thing. That belief should be destroyed. I don't believe in myself, inside myself, thinking this, feeling that. Well, it's a game. Now, as a game, it's perfect. As a reality, it's trash. So once you understand that directly, not intellectually, well, things are very simple, you see? It's very simple. So we could put it in that way. The I principle we are going to talk about the I principle with old word, a very old word, soul, the soul. Well, the spiritual essence. Well, what is my spiritual essence? I. Consciousness, awareness, pure awareness, that's my soul. But it's me, you see? When in the old days they were talking about their souls, they were talking about the essence of their personal identity. Not any when that chap, that German, I'll forget his name, so I don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. So you could say that you take the word which is daring, use the word soul, that old and ruined in a way word, but a good word, soul. Well, what is the mind if you in relation with the soul? What is happening in our mind? What is the relation with the I principle? Well, the I principle, the soul, pure consciousness, likes to play that game. So we can be astonished. Why in the hell my soul or the I principle would like to play that crazy game, which is generally called life? Very strange, very strange. But of course, as the I principle is something like God, in exactly in the other direction, but something as big, as wide, as marvelous as God, well, perhaps as powerful also. You should not discuss his ways of doing things, you see. Perhaps it would be stupid to make a procès, to bring to the tribunal. To suit God in a court is be stupid. So the I principle likes to play that game. And what is exactly the game? Well, let's say that there's another me, lower than lower, another me, not behind, but in front. Let's say there's another me, and let's say that other me, which is exists on a spiritual level, thinks, imagine, you have all these wonderful faculties, and let's say that inner time exists. Bon. He likes to play that. But of course, at any time, the whole thing, which is playing, the whole game, can go back to its source and disappear and vanish. It has no existence of its own. I don't mean if the I principle wants to play the game, but the game have in a certain way exists, but it has no existence to oppose to the I principle. And at any time, the I principle whistles, and the little dog comes into his house and vanishes. Right. That should work. So it's like a river which decided just for play to give itself what you call a branch. A branch, another branch. Bon, en français on dit un bras, un arbre, the same meaning. He decides just to play to give himself a branch. Of course, he knows very well that there is only one river. The river knows very well that there's only one river, and the water which is flowing in the branch, he gave himself, well, is the same water which is flowing in the main river. So everything is okay. He's just having a good time. He's playing. But you must notice that of course, the game we call duality. See, duality is there. So the first of all the games, and is the game which is played by our soul. By our soul, by the I principle, but the implication of the game, the nature of the game, has a very enormous implication. So it's the game of duality. So when duality there, of course, it's just for fun. See, so that's perfect. That's perfect, and we should live duality in that dimension. Just fun, just amusing, very amusing, a movie. But at the time, the river becomes crazy, and he doesn't see at that time. The river doesn't see that branch, which is itself, that branch as itself, but as another river, a concurrent. Hein? Je ne sais pas le mot pour concurrent en anglais. Oui, c'est ça. And an enemy. So at that time, the duality is not for fun, it's for real. And the river is splits. And that's the start of the division process. And that happens at the root of ourself, which means the root of our minds, at every second. At the start, it's charming, the first phase, the first microsecond. Well, it's okay. It's just a game. But immediately it becomes real, and the splitting is not for fun. The splitting is effective. So we enter the state of separation and hallucination. So I think it's a very nice, idea that in fact all we live inside ourselves, which is very important. I don't say it's not important. As part of the game, it's very important. A good novel is very important. It's very important, but it's fundamentally unreal, and it's just an extension of the I principle. That's perhaps the right word, you see. The I principle, well, he decides to give himself an extension. And the extension of the I principle is what we call our mind, our inner life, what we call psychology. C'est ça, généralement. Well, all that is not trash at the start. It's just a charming game. And I would think that, in fact, that charming game has has a function, that it's a dream, but the dream, it's the preparation, the start of the creation. It's the, comment on dit un plan d'architecte, un plan? A drawing of an architect, you say, so it's that dream has, virtually, is the world. And so it's not a little thing. Which means when the soul starts to play that strange game we call our mind, our inner life, a strange idea. Well, in fact, it's a step toward the creation. It's the same movement. So you could use another metaphor. My soul likes to smoke a pipe. So there's some fumée, comment on dit de la fumée? Smoke coming out of it. Well, very nice. My soul wants to smoke a nice pipe, it's all right. But when things go wrong, there's no more smoke. Smoke is unreal, reality. See? Or he takes a child's pipe, makes a big bubble, enormous bubble, very amusing. Yeah? And of course, it's absolutely unreal, subjective and unreal, just a bubble. But at the time, the bubble pretends to be a stone. See? And at that time it splits. The bubble doesn't accept that it comes from the pipe and is reducible to the pipe and to the chaps to the smoker. At that time, in French we say c'est foutu.
So it has a thinking of its own. When you say it doesn't accept that it's reducible to the pipe and the person, means it has a certain.
Well, in a way, it's en français on dit rébellion. If rebellion exists in English, yeah, you had that secession war. Well, in the States, well, it's a secession. That bubble with that thought, that mental image, which comes out directly from the soul, well, makes secession, and the war starts. And the blood is going to be there. So, in fact, you could say that he plays a game. So Soul plays the game of the mind. But the game is not absolutely innocent. Sooner or later, the game itself will want to be God, to be the source. And will try to separate itself from the source and forget the source and pretend he is the source. So it's not absolutely innocent. There's the metaphor of the river and the branch of the river, of course, one river. But there's another metaphor which could be used, the wave on the sea, the wave, and the water. Well, of course, I don't say that the wave doesn't exist, but the wave has no existence to oppose to the water, and it is reducible to water at any moment. And when things start to go very badly, well, it means that's when the wave refuses. It refuses to admit that it's pure water. See. So at that time, the water should be killed. The wave should be killed. But it doesn't mean that when the wave is innocent and accept the fact that it has no existence to oppose to the water, well, the wave has a right to a certain existence. But as soon as that existence, he affirms that his existence, or its existence, can be opposed to the source, to the water, but at that time everything is ruined, it's finished. And of course, if you wanted to practice this, you should remember that it has no existence in general. It's not a. It happens now. See, so you must not the mistake of killing the hallucination, the wave which refuses to the notion that it is pure water, to reduce itself to the water. You must not kill it yesterday or tomorrow. See, not in a minute, not immediately. It's the only place where it exists really is now, inside myself now. But of course, this seems on earth. It's very obvious. If I look at a piece of gold on the carpet, well, it's nice gold. I grab it, but I don't grab the definition of I won't try to grab the definition of gold I found in the dictionary. It would be stupid. A chap who would be that would go to the asylum immediately. I mean, crazy. Well, no, I won't try to grab the piece of gold in general. What would it mean in general? I grab it now, concretely. Now. But if there's a horrible, comment on appelle une araignée en anglais? Spider. And a horrible spider, dangerous one, just there. Well, I'm going to crush it, but I'm not going to think a very long time before crushing it, and I'm not going to crush the concept, try to crush the concept of spider, the spider concept. I'm just going to do that. It's very simple now. Inside ourselves, we should act that way. Very simple. And you see, it's very strange because lots of people try to get to that high principle. Bon. So they never look at any dictionary. It's a shame because perhaps they would find lots of answers. But in fact, they act as crazily as I would act if I were try to grab the definition of the dictionary of gold instead of just grabbing the piece of gold. So they try to grab the idea they have about the thing and not the thing itself. So perhaps they open a book, they read a few books. Well, that gives an idea of the thing. They want to grab the idea. They go see a master says that, they want to grab the idea. But it's crazy. You've got to grab to grab the thing, not the shadow of the thing, you see? If I want to hold my mind, well, I'm going to the sun. I'll come back to my chair. Well, if you want to grab your hand, I put everything out of order.
It's okay.
I shouldn't get up.
So you have to hold them.
Yeah. Well, c'est ça. If you want to grab very simply on earth, grab your hand or touch your shoulder, or your head, you don't try to touch the shadow of it on the pavement. No. That idea wouldn't occur to you. It's stupid, obviously stupid. But you make after all, the shadow, my own shadow on earth is quite convincing because I move my arm, the shadow moves its arm also. Dangerous. So there's You see the danger? I could identify myself, my body, to the shadow, to its shadow, because it moves and I move. So that mental image, the mental image me, the mental image I. Well, I do something. Mental image does it immediately. It works as a shadow, in fact. So I go back. Oh, I touch the thing. So there's immediately the shadow of the thing, the mental image, me touching me. And after that, I lose, I lost it. There's a mental image of, which represents the thing, the movement of losing. I'm going to grab it again, so another shadow. And I'm always say the power of the shadow is enormous. It convinces me, absolutely it's me. I think. So I should be aware that it's not me, it's an illusion. It functions like that in a way. Our soul produces a shadow. Well, if our soul does something, the shadow does the same thing. I move my arm, my shadow on earth moves his arm. So we are always mixing the soul and its own shadow. So, and even if we do it while we are mixing up the two things, even if we've got very good intentions, we are harming ourselves greatly. Very dangerous. But even if there are good intentions, there will be a shadow of the good intention. See? But when there are no more shadows, if we discover that, and well, you kill the shadow, no more shadows, and no more thoughts. And this is another thought, so there are not even this. So I am there. And at that time, what seems very important, a chap is in direct contact with the infinite value, he has a realization, he is the realization, ultimate realization. What do you think he's going to do? Try to speak of what he lives and write lots of books and convince people, be a missionnaire? Not at all. He will go out and smoke a cigarette, nice cigarette, or perhaps sit at a cafe and order a good demi, drink it tranquilly, with tranquility, perhaps go have a nice game of golf. But the fact that a plant moves in the wind is much more important than any truth, than the ultimate truth. There's no ultimate truth, just trash. But the small movement of a plant, that greenness, that's very, very important. A leaf, you say a leaf, which is falling, making a sort of a spiral. Well, this is a very small thing, apparently compared to the ultimate realization, yes. But the chap who is the ultimate realization thinks, well, his position is entirely different. He says, the ultimate realization? I don't even know what you're talking about. Anyway, it cannot be anything but trash. But that leaf which is falling, that's very interesting. That's very important. I will add that smoking is a charming game.
So would you say that things have a different meaning? Because yesterday you were talking about the meaning of, like for example, a tree. If you look at a tree, you have all your ideas and concepts about this tree.
Yeah.
But when you really see the pure meaning, I think you used the word pure meaning.
Yes, I think I did.
Yeah. Pure concept.
Yeah. You see, it's very subtle also. We think, when we look at things, we think we are really looking things, perceiving things. On dit perceiving, c'est comme percevoir, c'est ça, perceiving the thing. Directly. But in fact, we are not looking at the ashtray, we are looking at all the knowledge we've put on the ashtray. In fact, we are looking at it's a mental duplicate of intellectual duplication of the ashtray we're looking at. So in fact, we think we perceive with our eye, but in fact we never perceive anything directly. In fact, I'm obliged to say that we perceive what goes on in our mind. We never went out of our head. We were sitting there. I'm looking at that thing. No, the chap is looking in his head. And so this is quite awful, because that duplication of the whole world, the whole creation, is very dull. It has no meaning. It's well, the absence of meaning is sometimes terrible. So you look. There are a few things which has some meaning. A pretty woman, a man for a woman. But that's more or less the start, the middle, and the end of what survives, has survived. No, we think I'm looking at the world, I'm perceiving the world. The world is, what is the world? The world, for me, the world is what I discover pretendly with my eyes from the place I am. So the world is very small. Cosmos, I don't know what it is. But we think we perceive it directly, and it's a mistake. We perceive the thoughts we have projected in the thing, very roughly. And these thoughts are not, comment dirais-je, fluent, light. They are pure affirmations. You see, it's not, so it's very impressive in a way. So, a few years after I woke up, that was a spiritual redemption, principle. And in fact, I didn't need anything. It's the infinite value. I had in me the infinite value, so I would have been crazy to search for something else. Ridiculous. But 2 years after, suddenly, that light of consciousness, well, it went out of my mind, and came. This light was on the world itself, and it destroyed immediately the duplication, the mental duplication of the world, which was so dull and which didn't mean anything. And suddenly the meaning was there. What meaning? Impossible to say, but the meaning was there. And this is an enormous evidence. It means. In fact, it's a shout. You shout it immediately. Even the normal reaction of a man confronted to that miracle is to shout. So it means. And it's glorious, and it's what you call the paradise, in fact. In the old days, you call it the paradise, last paradise. At that moment, well, you don't deal with the idea you have about the things, you deal with the things, the tree directly. And the tree becomes marvelous. And the meaning of the tree is, the tree is something marvelous, and the tree itself is marvelous, and it's ecstatic. And at that same time, very queer things occur. The attention is modified definitely. Before that happening, well, you paid attention to one thing, then to one thing. Well, it could be compared to arrow, the attention. So the arrow and a target. So there was some light on the target, but each time there was light on the punctual target, there was darkness around it. Yeah? So at that time, the arrow, or the spear, perhaps, the spear, opens, and it becomes like an eventide. Yeah, it opens, and you pay attention to everything in the same time, which is normally is impossible. And everything is in the light of it. Everything is at the same degree, which is absolute, is in the light of attention or consciousness. So you see everything in the same time. And on dit la richesse, comment ça se dit? Richness of the world appears fantastic, because you see, I see that piece of furniture there, or that chair, these carpets. But after that, I see all the little things which make the carpets. All the little details are seen as clearly as the thing itself. See, so the richness of the world is incredible, but with that kind of use of the attention, which has opened itself and is grabbing everything at the same time, well, it's very easy. Where it jumps to your eye, every little detail jumps to your eye. Eyes, in fact, jumps to your soul, and you have nothing to do to get to that point. It's very easy. And at that time, the feeling is, there's another feeling where it means I see everything in the same time. The meaning is everywhere. In fact, the world starts to function as a text. I'm reading, and there's some meaning, see? And the meaning is glorious. Very strange that things could start to function as signs or symbols. But it's as a text. So, in fact, the world becomes a text. Of course, the car is still a car, the stone is still a stone, but they work as the whole thing works as a text, and you get the meaning. For one thing, you get the meaning, so you're submerged by meaning, really. There's an overflowing of meaning, incredible. And all these meanings are like des épées, comment on dit, sword of bliss, pure bliss, which enter your soul. So it's a good moment. It's a nice moment. Even better than sit at a cafe and drink a beer. Even better, you see. Even better, you shoot a good golf ball. Even better. Not.
So what is your relationship with all this? With this, what did you say? This meaning.
Well, it's you see, at the precise moment, the duplicate falls down, and you're confronted with what you call Eden or Eden? Eden, yeah. Well, that meaning is there, and well, it's me. The state of separation is finished, but it doesn't mean that I'm mixing my knee with your car. You see. I'm not crazy. I'm not mixing my knee with your car on the tree. No, but the separation from my soul is, so the thing is out of my knee. Okay, but not of my soul. So, which doesn't mean at all that there's no diversity. You see, and it doesn't mean that these things doesn't exist. The sensation of the absolute existence of the tree is enormous. And the sensation of my own absolute existence is enormous, infinite. But the tree continues to exist by itself. I continue to exist by myself. But nevertheless, we are definitely linked. So it's very strange because they are me and the other. And the other still exists, I still exist, but we're the same thing at the same time. What I was trying to say is, what I was saying, is that when, at the same moment where you deal with Eden, and the duplicate has vanished, so you have a direct, immediate perception. It's the first time in my life, you see. When I was a child, I was convinced that I was a very sensible child, so very sharp. So I was absolutely convinced that I had direct perception. But when I had really a direct perception, I discovered that I was all my life I had been looking, even if I was very sharp, I had been looking at shadows, at a duplicate, mental or intellectual duplicate, a duplication of the creation, a false creation. So when that marvelous thing happens, well, the attention functions, as I say, you grab everything. But the infinite number of things which are in your field of perception are grabbed effectively in the same time, each one at the same time. So if you compare that to the notes, music, lots of notes, yeah, an incredible number of notes. And in fact, it starts to function as notes. When you play notes, you hear a melody. Very strange. You hear music, but of course that's because that field is not polluted by ideas, because the sonore, comment on dit sonore? The sound level doesn't seem to us as real. So we don't project all our affirmations, our mental positions so that's why we hear music. But in the visual level, we don't hear music. And at that precise moment, so sometimes we hear the music of a landscape. Pof, pof. There's a music, but it doesn't happen very often. At that moment, well, you start to hear with your soul very clearly the music which is the meaning, that meaning has vanished from the word, disappeared. But pure qualities. And when you deal with that quality, that family of qualities, because I'm there's the melody of the universe, of what I see. I hear it, but I turn my head. So it's not, you could say that it's the same landscape with no, it's another landscape, another world. A little change in that landscape makes it another world. It's not the same picture with a little difference. It's another picture. I turn my head, and there's another one of these supreme qualities which is talking to me. In fact, and so that's a discovery you cannot forget. And after that, of course, you know how, like the eye principle, once it has appeared in you, well, it's you. You know how to, it generates itself. But in fact, you generate it. Eh? Well, so you know how to, you know the gesture. You know the right gesture. Well, with the world, with Eden, same thing. You know, there's a gesture, you make it, and you have it. So, and it's quite easy, even when things on earth are very bad and very torturing. Well, nevertheless, the gesture is quite easy. And if you're about to die, suffering a great deal, or if you lost someone you love very much, infinitely, well, the thing works just the same thing, in the same way. It's quite easy. So it's queer because in my case there was a spiritual redemption. In fact, that's the main thing, the center of the thing. After that, if you call that thing God, which is not my word for it, if you call that thing God, well, the generosity is God is even greater than we could think, because I have the only thing which counts. After the ultimate value, after that, I have more. Impossible to have more, but yes, I have more. So we could perhaps finish and with that consideration that lots of people try to get to themselves. They think they despise thinking. I don't despise thinking. I despise the perversion of thinking. I don't despise intelligence. But they despise thinking, and they have that notion that they must go backward in themselves to the source. But they use the bad tool. And the bad tool, of course, is thinking. But they don't. But there, it has another name. It's introspection, self-observation. Well, as long as the chap is going to try to grab himself by observation, grounding on that postulation that there's a thing like a me which observes and a me which is observed, he will never work. In fact, that crazy thing, a me who observes and a me who is observed, well, it's a crazy thing. Me spectacle, moi spectacle, moi spectateur. See, well, this is absolutely crazy, and you could say, well, it's just crazy, but it doesn't bite. Yes, it bites. It's very dangerous. Nothing is more dangerous. And I think at the root of the hallucination, there is that inclination, which can be very difficultly be resisted, the temptation of observing. So when I observe me, in fact, I'm convinced I'm observing myself. Inside myself, I'm observing myself. But of course, that myself is over there, not here. So it cannot be me. It cannot be me. This is an hallucination. And it should be, you see, comment on dit un clou en anglais? Nail. Nail? Nail. Well, that's one of the nails you should put hammer, yes. Take the hammer and put the nail and hit the nail indefinitely. Very important that the nothingness, the nothingness and the néant of self-observation, introspection. This is a false path. A false path. And the people who, without knowing it, are using that track, that way, that track, well, they're absolutely sure that they know everything. They know everything. And at the end of sometimes they become very habile. The research about based on the craziness of self-observation can be at the end very sophisticated, and they meet their thing, neutralité, the mot neutre. Comment on dit? Neutral. They meet. This is neutral. This is neutrality itself. But what they don't realize is neutrality is a thought. Paf! You should destroy that trash. And I noticed that when a chap takes the wrong path and tries to observe himself and grab himself, his soul, by self-observation, well, he becomes very pretentious. He thinks he's God, and he looks at the human being with despise. All these little human affairs going on, trash, nothing. In fact, when you take the right path, which is consciousness, there At the end, is there any despise of the human being, the human faults? But we are only toujours faillible, fallibility. I don't know the English name for the English word.
It's not really weakness, it's...
Well, you could say, how does the I principle itself looks at the human being with love and respect? And the human being is a child. The child made foolish things. He loves him nevertheless. Sometimes he's obliged to give him a smack, but that's another question. But it's love. So the relation between the I principle and the human being is love. Not despise, love. And my errors as a human being, my weaknesses, right? Well, this is charming, you see? This is charming. It's like the leaf going down in spiral to the ground. This is very important. My human weaknesses are very important. When I see somebody, when I reap, I see that he's weak. He's weak. Well, I want to cry. May cry out of joy, you see? It breaks my heart, but in fact it builds my heart. So that's very astonishing, because the I principle is the human being. See, it's the same thing. The I principle is not an abstraction. It's not séparé. So it's not. And it's not separated from the human being, from the quality of humanity. It's the same thing. In fact, I think that a man who awakens becomes a man for the first time in his life. The quality of humanity and the pure consciousness are the same thing. So it's not, you can say it's impersonal, but in a way, because it has nothing to do with the little details of our personalities, our character and personal characteristics. Of course, it has nothing to do with that, but it has something to do with the person itself.
So can we say that in the consciousness, as you say, that everything is me, but at the same time, a tree has a quality of a tree, and I have a quality of a human
Yes.
being within the same...
Yes. We are the same. And it's because, you see, the tree becomes the tree, and I become myself. And at that moment, well, the tree is the tree, and I am myself. But it's at that the precise moment that there's a difference, but there's no more separation. You see, we mix up two concepts very often, the concept of separation and the concept of difference. The concept like exteriority and the concept of multiplicity or diversity. Well, we should make, that is the source of many tactic errors in a chap who is looking, trying to grab his soul, go to his soul, to go to his source. So it's just bad thinking. See, normally, if a chap hears an Oriental master, a good one, and who is really grounded in his soul, in the I principle, he listens to the master, but he will misunderstand absolutely everything. There's a big risk that he will of misunderstanding and confusing. So he will think that the world doesn't exist. So it's just shit. And my daughter and the love I have for my daughter, it's just shit, trash, illusion. And what is personal in me is illusion also. Well, that's awfully dangerous. And that comes from an intellectual confusion between the idea of separation, exteriority, and the idea of difference and diversity. You see, you should not mix it. So it's not because the thing is different from me that it is separated from me. So the tree is the tree. I'm that man, but this occurs only in the level of difference, not in the level of separation. So I don't have to kill the tree. Huh? I don't have to kill myself. I have to kill the impression of separation. So you don't have to make any sacrifice. The only thing which must be sacrificed is what has never existed, the shadows. Well, I'm not going to cry if I lose my shadow. Huh? I have no more cigars. How sad. And I still have some cigarettes. Ah, nice. Voilà. On a fait le tour.
Oui. Ah oui.
On a fait un grand tour. Ce qui est toujours embêtant, c'est que c'est dans le désordre. C'est ça qui est emmerdant. Mais enfin.
Je te l'enverrai, puis tu le remets
Oui,
dans
on
l'ordre.
verra. Non, mais ça n'a pas d'importance parce qu'en fait, c'est comme ça que ça se passe. Tu vois. Et si j'essayais de mettre de l'ordre, ça foutrait tout en l'air. Parce que c'est vrai que j'ai remarqué ça. Simplement, il y a deux discours. Il y a le discours intellectuel, mais en fait, même si c'est dans le désordre, ça s'éparpille pas dans toutes les directions. En fait, c'est toujours cohérent et donc ça continue à fonctionner. Puis il y a l'autre niveau que ce grand bordel permet d'avoir accès. C'est un autre niveau bizarre de communication, très étrange, c'est que ça passe. Ça passe. Et puis attention, il me semble que j'ai parlé anglais. Je ne suis pas sûr que j'ai vraiment parlé anglais. Voilà, c'est ça, objectivement, je ne suis pas absolument sûr que j'ai vraiment parlé anglais. Mais j'ai essayé, hein.
Bon, on va coller des étiquettes là-dessus.
Oui. C'est le secret.